So I vaguely remember when this book was announced back in 2022. And at the time, after Hickman's House of X and Powers of 10, and I started kind of reading what the rest of the X staff was writing, I was like, nope, I'm out. And it just, Krakoa for me, just continually got worse and worse and strayed so far from what Hickman was trying to do. Tried to bring it back on track with, what was that? Inferno, and that's. So when I saw this, I went, oh, good. It was just what we need, another freaking Krakoan book. And I've told you guys this time and time again. I like when my perception is changed. As long as there's merit for it. And this book kind of gave me some merit. This right here feels like this is what the X staff should have done after Hickman's initial setup. So X-Men 92, House of 92, number 1. And before we dive into it, this, I kind of hate this whole Saved by the Bell niche. I don't give a damn about that. But anyway, this is Steve Fox, I think is how you pronounce that, writer. Salva Espin, artist. Israel Silva doing the colors. VC's Joe Sabino, letterer. Here's everyone else working on the book. So minus the whole Saved by the Bell, member berries, 80s. This follows the same beats as Hickman's, not Powers of 10, because that book was a little over my head. I mean, I kept up, but Hickman does that sometimes where he'll kind of write, and it's sort of like trying to keep up with Grant Morrison sometimes. But House of X, that was relatively straightforward, and that's what happens here is the X-Men end up on this orcish installation, but instead of it being Nimrod and all that stuff and people, it's Sentinels. And this is supposed to, I think, follow the X-Men of the animated series, which is cool with me, because we know who the team is. You know the mission, X-Men. If we can end the Sentinel threat here, now, forever, then we might just have a shot at bringing Professor X's dream to life. But our new home doesn't stand a chance if Trask gets the latest model online. So same concept. Instead of it being like the Orcish installation, this is a master mold installation. So it's kind of like, all right. I like that they kind of keep, what do you call it? The concept of the animated series in here, because Orcish and all that stuff was never in the animated series. So again, kind of following that. And here's Beast kind of flying the Blackbird, making sure to pick up his team. And what I like here is Beast. Though, as Hemingway said, never think that war, no matter how necessary, nor how justified, is not a crime. Instead of the asshole Beast that we saw that happened in Krakoa, that was a murder and blah, blah, blah. Sore spot with me. I'm not going to waste y'all's time. In here, even though it's been homage to death, just about every single friggin' cover does, but obviously this is X-Men 130. I think it's 138, right? Because 139 is the one where he... No, 140 is where Scott leaves the X-Men, because 141 is Days of Future Past. So the death of Phoenix, I believe, was 139. So that's what they're homaging as the cover there. And so Jean's having trouble keeping a telepathic link with the other X-Men as they're trying to find Trask and ripping through the Sentinels. The artwork is... it has that animated series feel to it. I did enjoy Hickman's artwork better. Like, he didn't do the artwork. I can't remember. He said Ribic that I think it did. I don't. It's been so long since I read House of 10, House of X, whatever. But anyway, since this is supposed to be the animated series, it works. And I'm just, Logan, I thought I smelled scum. If Trax is on this station, I'm not wasting my time with these 10 cans. Just great stuff all around. And you just, the whole time you're reading it, you can't help but hum. And of course, Gambit, share. Remy, help, there's too many of them. You mess with Gambit's lady, you don't get just one card. You get the full deck. Gambit, no. You're too close to... And it just shows how powerful, how powerful Gambit is. And then there's something that happens here, which is very much an homage to X-Men War 42. So minus a few member berries, the story to me feels fresh. Logan finally finds Boulevard Trask. And even though Trask is in seemingly perilous doom, he's able to do something that sort of contradicts what they were planning on doing in the first place. But while all that is happening, we cut now to sort of what happened in House of 10, House of X. I know it gets confusing. Where rather than the Cuckoos, and I think it was Ileana, giving the tour to all the embassy members, it's Psylocke. And I like how Betsy says, if your nation agrees to recognize mutant independence in the newly founded nation state of Krakoa, which, may I remind you, was established without displacing anyone or colonizing any pre-existing lands, we violated no treaties and declared no wars. We simply wish to exist, to thrive, and to astonish. And so rather than sounding like these segregationist assholes that the X-Men sounded like during the Krakoan era, it's Betsy. She has that empathy, Elizabeth Braddock. And you feel it here. And she's actually able to start swaying Guardian and the president. And at this moment, seemingly Henry Geinrich as well, which we all know is the main bad dude. But there's something with him. There's a twist. I don't want to run. You guys are going to have to read the book. But I like how Psylocke says there's something going on and we need some of our big hitters. And so she reaches out to Cable, who brings in X-Force. And we get Cannonball, Darkstar, right? And Pyro. And it's to go after, who the hell is it? Hold on a second. The Friends of Humanity. So I love that little callback to the show as well. I wish that there would have been more action, because rather than talking, it would have been nice to see what happens here. But they have to stay on point where Elizabeth says, we really will be able to quiet some of the fears once your nations agree to formally recognize Krakoa. And Mac here says, I'll have to speak to the Prime Minister to be sure, but I suspect Canada will stand with Krakoa. And the President says, I can answer on behalf of America. We will as well. But before anything else happens, they see the aftermath of what happened on the Sentinel outpost. And of course, we see the eggs. And there's a whole different 5 here. Rather than being, was it Gold Ball? Forget the girl's name, the magical one with the purple hair from Bendis' run. Can't remember her name. But there's still like Proteus. Interesting to see Fabian Cortez. Hold on. It's not Speedball. What is her name? It's right here. It's the 5. Proteus, Tempo, Healer, Karma, and Fabian Cortez. So it's interesting to see the LMF here. Morlocks, Acolytes, and then of course Moira McTaggart's son. And then Karma, that does not look like Karma to me, but interesting nonetheless to see one of the new mutants being part of the 5. And you come to find out that even though they were able to establish Krakoa and find peace, it comes at a price. And Logan says, tell that to the mutants who ain't alive to see it. We all miss her, Wolverine. But that doesn't mean you can spit in the face of Professor X and everyone else fighting to make this island safe haven for the rest of us. Let him grieve the girl in his own way, Cyclops. Now let me see. There's a poignant moment here that I wanted to read to you guys. Let me see if I can find it here. It's Xavier's internal monologue. For years I dreamt of peace between mutants and mankind. My mistake was not working toward peace between mutants first. On Krakoa, there are no heroes and villains. We all strive for the common good of the species and for the world we share with others. Krakoa is and will always be a refuge for any mutants who seek a life here, no matter their past deeds or country of origin. And while I hope we will not always need to fight for the right to peacefully exist, I know my X-Men will safeguard this land from any who cause it harm. And I just love how they kind of bring Wade in begrudgingly there. But did you guys catch it? My mistake was not working toward peace between mutants first. And that just kind of reminds me how it says, always get your house in order first. Do you guys not see how this is how Krakoa should have been, instead of how angry and disconnected that all these characters with big hearts had all of a sudden just seem off? Here, everyone still feels the same. Let's get past the, oh my God, radical, look at it, 90s. Shut up, that's stupid. Then they explain why. Like, rather than how with powers of 10 and House of X, where all of a sudden they're on Krakoa and they didn't really explain how they moved towards it. In this book, they talk about there was the Sentinel attack on the mansion, and what do you call it? Before they started figuring out how to do the the resurrection protocols, so they lost some key people that were near and dear to their heart. But as Xavier tries to say that their deaths would not be in vain. The child's loss that unified us all. Her death was the spark that lit the fires of Krakoa. Now let mutant kind's strength burn as an inferno forever in her memory. And so again, I don't want to spoil it, but we come to find out who it is, and everyone feels like themselves. Scott and Jean. And Gambit even tells Rogue, he says, now, this is kind of a spoiler, so if you guys don't want this last bit, pause the video, go get the book and read it and come back, and you're back. Gambit looks to Rogue and he says, it's time to do one of the Krakoan rules, start making more mutants. And she goes, Remy, you know I can't touch you without killing you. And he goes, well, it seems like we've licked death, so I don't mind a little bit of pain for love. And she gets so bent out of shape, which we understand why. But everybody feels like everybody. And of course, there's a threat on the horizon in the last couple of pages. We find out who orchestrates this new, I don't know if it's supposed to be like a new LMF or a new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but we could see how paradise may not be so much paradise. Now, again, if this is how Krakoa would have continued after Hickman's initial setup, I would have been on board with everybody else, but I hated it because nobody felt like the way they're supposed to. I've never read anything by Steve Fox before, but he gets who the X-Men are, and it shows in these pages. And just that, and I think what really turned me to the favor of this book is when Xavier is thinking to himself and he says, my mistake was not getting mutants to coexist together first. Because how can you try to get another set of people to understand your viewpoint if you can't even get your own house in order? And that was just a great way to bring it together. So I'm excited. I think there was only like 5 or 6 of these, so I may go check the rest of these out. Speaking of, the way that I found this one is I was out grocery shopping, and someone had mentioned that they're doing X-Men trading cards again, so I went over the card section, hope maybe I could find some. And I was just flipping through, and they were doing 7 Marvel comics for $10. So, oh, what the hell, why not? And this was intermixed in it. So I'm glad that I took the chance. So if you guys have enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever it is like to get your action figures and comics, and pick up this series. I highly recommend it. And I know for those of you that have been with, we've been hanging out in the community for a while, that me saying recommending a Krakoan book is odd. So there you go. And if you've enjoyed this review, really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little X bell next, subscribe. That way we can continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and I love talking with you all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below, or the socials, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.